Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. As Liam has just introduced, my name's Bill White. I'm the Managing Director of Lucid Talk, and you're all very welcome. What we have for you tonight is a few slides for myself to kick off with. Now, I promise you it's not, as is known in the trade, death by PowerPoint. So we're not going to just throw a whole lot of slides at you. I probably will take the blame for maybe having the most sort of, the usual sort of buttons on the slides. But obviously with events like this, you have to cover that sort of detail in terms of the background to the company Lucid Talk, etc., etc. Then we'll be leading on to my colleague, Gerry Lynch, who many of you know very well. Gerry is a former chief executive of the Alliance Party for a long period of time. And he actually was instrumental, with many others, in terms of building the Alliance Party into what it is today, a reasonably powerful political party in the Northern Ireland political scene. And then we're very welcome, we want to say a great welcome to Walter Russell Meade, our primary guest speaker, if I can describe him as that, because he's got an American accent for the very good reason that he is American born and bred, and he's a very prominent speaker and authority on, particularly on US foreign policy, if I may describe him, if that's okay. And I think he's going to cover a number of aspects of that. Hopefully he'll be able to give us some insight into the forthcoming US election, of course, which is the main reason why we're all here. And I don't know if he's going to go as far as give us a totally cast iron prediction. If he's a good politician, I'm sure he won't. Because as all good pollsters, myself and Gerry, we won't be absolutely doing that either, but we will be making a prediction, but with the usual, what is it called in politicians, sort of wriggle room. There'll be a little bit of wriggle room there. So, but look, very much welcome to you all. I'd particularly like to do a couple of particular welcomes. I'd like to welcome Greg Barton, the US consul, who's just been recently appointed in the last several months, and his good lady. You're very welcome. And I particularly, of course, like to, as Liam has already mentioned, our sponsor partners, Momentum, who are the ICT industry body in Northern Ireland. And I'd just like to welcome Michael Noble. He's somewhere in the audience. There he is. And if you want to have a chat to Michael about the IT industry in Northern Ireland and where it's going and how it's growing, Michael will be able to have a chat with you in the supper afterwards. Just leaving the Belfast Telegraph, Jeanbury Public Affairs, as we can see here with their banner, are a prominent public affairs organisation in Northern Ireland, and I'm sure well known to many of you, and we welcome their support. Northern Ireland Government Affairs Group, an association of government affairs organisations in Northern Ireland, and also the Northern Ireland Science Park. We welcome their facilities here tonight, and obviously, we're very pleased to have their facilities. Two particular partners here tonight in terms of the technology, if you like. Whole School is a business partner of Lucid Talk. We're working with Whole School at the moment on our online polling engine, which we're launching at the start of next year. And without going into the technical details, we're making it as robust and one of the most advanced online polling engines that we believe is going to be in the marketplace, and we'll be announcing that in January. And also KMP, who are doing a live Twitter feed here, so if you have any comments on the event as we're going through the event, obviously we'd like to hear them via Twitter. So I think I've sort of covered everything. Just, I suppose, all I could say is, look, we want to make this as interactive as possible. I'm sure Mr. Russell Meade will welcome questions maybe at the end of his talk, but I'll let him introduce himself when he comes on. But certainly myself and Gerry will welcome any questions as we go through. What we're trying to do at the start is just give you a perspective on the US election and just some ideas and what to watch out for over the next 2 weeks, because obviously as we build up to the election, it's going to attract a fair amount of publicity here. So obviously you'll see it on the TV, and I'm sure you've all, or some of you have seen parts of the TV election debates that have taken recently. The last one was on Monday night, so obviously any views on that, if you have any questions, please, obviously, please ask questions at any time. Just obviously I have to do the bit here, I have to do the dime tour, to use the American term here, of Lucid Talk and what we are and what we do as a company. Lucid Talk just recently formed. I'm the managing director. My senior partner is Gerry Lynch, as already introduced. We have a number of projects we work with, but primarily one of our major partnerships is with the Belfast Telegraph, as Liam has already alluded to. We are planning biannual Northern Ireland-wide polls with the Belfast Telegraph. The brochure that you all should have had on your way in is of the May poll that we did with the Belfast Telegraph, and that includes all the coverage which lasted for about a week in May, and we covered a number of range of issues, and hopefully you all saw that in the Telegraph at that time. We're actually following that up with another poll in November, maybe slightly smaller than the May poll, and then another major poll next May. So we're doing it every 6 months. One of the major reasons we're doing that is that there's never been any tracking polls done really in Northern Ireland as far as we can see. One of the benefits of polling is to do it over a period of time so you can see the trends. And although a particular opinion poll may be wrong at a particular time, it may have an error in it, the actual trends in polling are usually never wrong. And obviously that's what we're going to try to capture, is to capture Northern Ireland opinion over a 6-monthly period of time. We're also launching in January 2013 a range of opinion panels of specific groups, of stakeholder groups, influencer groups, decision-making groups in Northern Ireland, including MLAs and councillors, managing directors and financial directors, public sector managers, etc. Already mentioned the online polling engine. And we also run a range of events like this, focus groups, and we also have, although we don't have it tonight, I'll just be mentioning the future events we've planned where we will be having live polling, so with a handset device, a bit like I'm sure you've seen them at other events, but a bit like the best way to describe it is the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire stuff, the A, B, C and D, and we'll be able to give instantaneous results of people's views on key issues live at an event. Just some of the credentials. My background, I'm in the IT industry, but I did work in the polling industry in London and Great Britain for a period of time, and a Maths and Statistics graduate, operational research, and so I've always had an interest in this field. Jerry's background, he can describe himself when he comes on, but he's a very substantial background in the area of elections and psephology, as is known, which is the science of elections. Don't ask me to spell that, by the way, because it gets quite difficult. But anyway, we're a member of all the applicable professional organisations, particularly very key, the British Polling Council, which means that when all our polls, when we conduct them, when we say so, when they're approved and they're authenticated, they're run to British Polling Council standards. Because, like all of us, and there's no law against this. I mean, you can go out and do a poll. We can take a poll here tonight. But if you're going to do it to British Polling Council standards, that is when you get a stamp of approval to say that is representative of opinion in Northern Ireland or of opinion within a particular group. So that's, and all our polls that we do with the Belfast Telegraph are all done to British Polling Council standards. Forthcoming seminars, just to, we're kicking off tonight, and obviously we're very pleased with the turnout here tonight. We'll be running around February, March time, polling and market research, because it's outside the scope of this seminar tonight to cover the total intricacies of polling and market research, but we'll touch on it a little bit just in a few moments. And then we'll be doing a couple of other events covering the UK political scene, the Irish political scene, and next September, Scotland independence. Is it coming? That's going to be a year away from the referendum on Scottish independence, so we feel the debate will be warming up then. Well, it has already warmed up actually if you follow the media, but certainly by next September, it's only going to be a year away from the referendum. And as I said at the bottom here, we're hoping, for example, the Deputy Leader of the SNP has already confirmed that she will be available at that time. And we're hoping to get a number of top political contributors, panel discussion. We're also hoping to have live polling at those events as well. So a little bit about, I just thought I'd give this perspective with regard to tonight. Politics and decision making are changing, I think, and again, a lot of this is based on research. Some of it, yes, it's our general opinion as well of what's happening. But if you think back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I mean, a lot of politicians were viewed as powerful in terms of all aspects of life, particularly including the economy. If you look through the 80s and 90s, decisions were beginning to be made in wider groups, including politicians, but getting more influence by banks, multinationals, social economy, international trade groups, etc., etc. And what you're tending to find nowadays is more influential groups are coming into the fore, mixed in with the politicians, leading to overall decision-making processes. Certainly the politicians will have the view of us having made the decision, having signed it off, but it is more influential. You see more influential in society now, more influence from lobby groups, national media, social media, polling, PR, marketing. Of course, I'd have to say polling, and we'd have to say lobby groups as well. With Chambre here, you could say, but this happens to be true, and it's certainly happening. You only have to look, as I say in the first line there, at the economy, where the Chancellor of the Exchequer probably in the 60s and 70s, and certainly recent chancellors have said this, Ken Clarke particularly has said this, where they were a lot more powerful, a lot more controls over the economy. Whereas you hear them complaining now that they don't have control over the economic levers. A lot of it's driven by the markets and the banks and the big interest groups here, as I said in the third point. And I just thought I'd put an interesting point. You probably all know this, but there was a recent decision made in that place in Illinois with a big effect in Northern Ireland. Do you know what that is? There's 2 or 3 people, sorry? Peoria. What did I say? Did I say Peoria? Peoria, sorry. That's been, Peoria. They're okay. Well, you can see the spelling. It's spelled correctly. Sorry. Anybody know? Because that actually, there's 2 or 3 people who made a decision in that place, and it dominated the media here for about a week. It was on Nolan Show for 3 days. It was on the news for about a week. So that's the corporate headquarters of Caterpillar, who own F.G. Wilson. So, I mean, that's the type of, again, back to the multinational. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, obviously that's open to debate, but there we go. Anyway, how does polling work? Just coming on to why we've all asked, hopefully everybody give their birthday, not necessarily the year, but their birth date and the way in. So just coming on to that at the moment. But if selected correctly, a randomly selected number of people can give a representative view of a much, much wider group. And of course, the second point there, the goal of polling is to get the same answers as if you had asked the whole wider population, say in Northern Ireland or in Great Britain or wherever. So what you do is, the key point is actually getting the correct sample. I'll just come on to that in the next slide. I'm just doing this because I know some of you already know all this science, but there may be some people here, I've had already people asking me, how can you just poll, as a lot of the polls do, poll 1,000 or 1,100 people in Great Britain and say that gets a representative sample of opinion for the whole of the population. But you can do that as long as the 1,000 or 1,100 people are selected correctly. I mean, that is the key thing. It's actually selection of the sample is absolutely key. If you selected the right sample, then weighting, a lot of polling organisations use weighting, which means that all groups are equally measured. I mean, a key example of that is if you take a sample of 1,000 or 1,100 people, you may just accidentally get 70% female, where obviously if you look at the demographics of the population, it may be 52% female, 48% male. So you weight that sample down to make it representative of the male-female split in society. But there's other age group, occupation group weighting factors as well. The margin of error, as you can see here, there's 4% at 60, 2.8% at 1,200, 2.2% at 2,000. But no matter how good the poll, there'll always be a margin of error of 1 time in 20. That's why you'll see the results published on the websites of the big polling organisations. They'll publish the margin of error, and then they'll say it at 95% confidence, and that's what they mean by the margin of error. I mean, I'm conscious of time. There's a lot more, obviously, as you would expect to this, but obviously we can have a chat afterwards if you wish to. But that's actually a lot more. We'll be covering a lot more detail of this in our seminar in February or March, particularly on polling and market research. But the key third point there, the margin of error, if we move on, yes, this is just want to check that was the next slide. This is just moving, I may as well move on from that, because this is why we asked you for your birthday date on the way in, because this is a good example of the way polling works. If you look at, just look at the little red dot there we go. This is polling, this is basically what polling is based on. There's a graph it's called the Poisson distribution, if those of you are into mathematics, or the binomial distribution, which is slightly different to this graph. But one of the examples you can use is, if you ask somebody, I want to get 95% confidence, as I said in the previous slide, that 2 people have the same birth date, the day and the month, not necessarily the same year, but the same birth date, the day and month, how many people would I have to collate in one group? Now, most people think there's 365 days in the year, leaving the leap year scenario out, the 365 possible birthdays. If I wanted to be 95% sure and put a lot of money on it, or stake my reputation on it, I'd like to get 150, 200 in a group to be 95% sure, even more than that. Well, actually, the figure is 43. To get 95% certainty, there's 2 people with the same birthday. You only need 43 people. In fact, once you get more than 23 people in a group, once you get 24 people, it's probable there's 2 people with the same birthday. Now, polling works in the same way, except that the figures here, to get about a 95% confidence in, say, for example, in the UK polling environment, we need to poll about 1,050 people. To get 95% confidence in the the US environment, you need to poll about 1,250, 1,300 people. And that gives you 95% accuracy. Now, you can't improve the accuracy by doubling the sample, of course you can, but you improve it from 95 to 96%, and that's what the previous slide said, in terms of the 4%, the 2.8%, 1,200, 2%, of 200. The only thing about that is, in this sort of economic climate and the real business world we live in, when you double your sample, you're sort of doubling the work, so you're doubling the cost. So there's no need for polling 2,000 people or polling 3,000 people. If you poll a representative sample, get a 95% representative opinion, that's what polling does. So the figures in terms of polling in the UK and the US environment is roughly around that area there. To get 95%, that's roughly about 1,050 people. In the Belfast Telegraph polls we try to aim to poll over 1,200 people in a selected sample around various areas of Northern Ireland. We actually poll more than that because it's in the Northern Ireland sense, there is a little bit of fallout from the troubles and the situation we've been having for the last 30 years. So there's actually certain areas we want to poll more to get a more representative sample, because we still get a higher level of people who don't want to participate in the polls here or don't want to answer particular questions, but that's another issue. But in terms of the pure mathematics, you're talking 1,000, 1,050. In the US, with a population of 370 million or something, you just need a sample of about 12 or 1,300, 1,350. Now, of course, it's absolutely crucial who those 1,350 people are. You can't just, go down Fifth Avenue and up 42nd Street and poll 1,300 people in New York City and say that's representative of opinion in the US. So most Americans would say perhaps you shouldn't include people in New York City, in terms of their polls, but that's another thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of work goes in with the big polling organisations in the US, indeed in the UK and everyone, and indeed with us as well, in terms of making sure the sample is actually representative. That's where the work comes in. There's a lot of work goes into that. So we actually if I can ask Barton now, just a bit of fun. I don't know what you got a few hits, did you? Yeah. Do you want to read? Do you want Barton? I should introduce Barton Crate, and you'll tell from his accent comes from Northern California, and he's one of our polling consultants. Works for Lucid Talk. So Barton, on the way in, as you probably know, hopefully most of you or all of you give Barton your day and month that you were born. I think you have a couple of matches then. Thank goodness.
We had a sample size of 55.
Right.
We had 4 hits. So can I? Hopefully everybody who had hits in this room. So if your birthday is the 28th of July, just raise your hand. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There's your match. The 28th of August. There's a match. The 21st of February. There's a match. Excellent. Contact each other at the end. And the 8th of January. There's your match.
Oh,
so
there we are.
4
Good.
hits out of a sample size of 50.
So there, look, we've done a very socially useful thing tonight. So there, you two, or the 4 pairs, is it? Yeah, 4. You can link with each other, send Christmas cards to each other and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. So I'll give them a horoscope. That's true. Okay. So I think that's really that's me. And I should have said, look, I wanted this to be as interactive as possible. That's really me finished. It's a quick 101 miles an hour down tour of polling. You would expect me to say, but it is true, there's an awful lot more to it than this. I mean, but the rudiments are there. The actual, this little fun thing with the birthday is the same principle, because you just need a relatively small sample to get the 95% certain. Indeed, you see here we got 4 hits, so you can see that worked tonight. So is there any particular questions just on the rudiments at the back? We want to get on to the interesting stuff, I take it, and obviously our guest speaker. Any questions? You obviously have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So no, everybody's stunned with that. There.